What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to TTB Ravens Media, bringing Ravens content every single day. If you want to stay updated with Ravens content, make sure to hit the subscribe button down below and hit the notification bell if you want to get notified every single time I upload a brand new video. And in today's video, I'm going to be talking really quickly about some obviously big NFL news, Odell Beckham Jr. and stuff like that. But then I'm obviously going to be talking mostly about the Baltimore Ravens. And I'm going to be answering 3 questions, okay? Can the Ravens sign Odell Beckham Jr.? Should the Ravens sign Odell Beckham Jr.? And will the Ravens sign Odell Beckham Jr.? Because I think there's 3 different answers that we have to look at and 3 different analysis, variables that we have to consider when looking at all of those questions. So, as always, comment down below what you guys think. And if you don't think that he'll come to the Ravens or should go to the Ravens, let me know where you guys think Odell Beckham Jr. will go. But if you didn't know, Odell Beckham Jr. Really, since he's been in Cleveland, has had some problems with Baker Mayfield, with Freddie Kitchens, with the other coaches that they've had. Hasn't really gone very well. And then obviously coming into this trade deadline, it was kind of obvious that he wanted to be traded out of there. His dad was posting like 10-minute videos of Odell cooking DBs and either Baker not throwing him the ball or Baker just missing the throw. LeBron James was tweeting like free Odell. Like a lot of people wanted Odell Beckham Jr. out of Cleveland, and then they didn't trade him. And then that forced them to basically say the next day after the trade deadline, hey, don't come to practice. And they told the team, hey, guys, Odell's basically not on this team. And then it came out last night that they would be releasing him today, and they have released him. So let's get into this first question. Can the Ravens sign Odell Beckham Jr.? They can get him on the roster, and it would not be something that would be very easy. So how it works is obviously Odell Beckham Jr. is in the waiver period right now. The Ravens waiver number, they're like 27th or 28th in the waiver wire. So they don't have high priority. And it's the current waiver claim price is $8 million or a little bit above $8 million. Ravens can't afford that. The only chance that the Baltimore Ravens have is if Odell Beckham Jr. starts refusing to report, which this is Odell Beckham Jr. Very well. I expect him to not want to report to a lot of teams. He's going to want to go where he wants to go. He does not want to get, randomly selected to play. So if a random team, let's say the Jacksonville Jaguars say, yeah, we want Odell Beckham Jr., there's a chance that he says, I don't want to play for the Jaguars. I will not report. No. And then the Jaguars end up saying, okay, no, never mind. We shouldn't go after Odell. Because Odell Beckham Jr. has a bit of a personality, and that's completely okay. He's a wide receiver. A lot of wide receivers have personalities, but you don't want to have him angry at your team before you even get there. So there's a chance that like some teams may want him, and he just says like, no, I don't want to be claimed by your team. And he could get to the spot where like if 50% of like his his waiver stuff is going well, 18 to 22 teams would be able to claim him. Ravens are still not one of those teams. That would be a $4 million thing. The only chance that the Ravens have at getting him is if Odell Beckham Jr. just completely refuses to play for like most other teams. And then it comes down to where he's basically cleared waivers because he's told like every team that wants to claim him, no, don't claim me. And then the Ravens could sign him. And the veteran minimum price is $597,000. The Ravens can absolutely afford that. The Ravens have a little bit over $1 million in cap space. I want to say it's about 1.3. However, it could easily make a little bit more money if they were to do some things and maybe get it up to around $2 million or something like that. But that's the can. Like, yeah, they could get it done if Odell really wanted to come to Baltimore. Now, one thing about that is like Odell has expressed that he's kind of wants to play with Lamar. And like, we've seen the videos of like Lamar talking about Odell, and he's like, guys, stop reaching out to me. I can't do anything. Like, this is the Ravens organization, like at them, not me. Odell after games, like he seems very friendly with Lamar. He's giving good comments about Lamar. So Odell, there's a chance that like Odell like actually wants to play with Lamar, and like that could happen. So that's the can. Like, it's possible. I didn't really think it was possible until like a couple days ago, because I was just thinking like No, there's no way. And then like his salary the next couple of years, there are outs, but it's at about 12, $13 million per year for the next 2 years. But there are outs for the team if his current contract was to be kept. But overall, that's the can. In terms of the should, Odell Beckham Jr. is I still think, a very talented wide receiver in the NFL. And he was, I don't think Cleveland was the right system for him. Cleveland is a run heavy team that doesn't try and get the volume for him. And Odell Beckham Jr. is a volume wide receiver, and he's going to want the football. Which kind of brings me to the Ravens. The Ravens are a team that wants to run the ball. But at the same time, if the Ravens, during the bye week, I've talked about this before, they want to establish their identity. What type of team do they want to be? Do they want to be a run-heavy team? Do they want to be a pass-heavy team? A balanced team? That's something that they're figuring out in this bye week right now. And if they decide like, hey, no, we want to stick to our roots and we want to run the football, don't go after Odell. That will cause problems. We saw what happened when Hollywood Brown wasn't getting the football and he expressed his concerns. Odell Beckham Jr. is not a player that is shy to say he wants the football and criticize other players and criticize the team for not getting him the ball. So if the Ravens aren't going to try and get him the football, it's definitely not worth it. But if the Ravens say like, hey, we want to be a passing attack, we want to shift the focus of this team because to win a Super Bowl this year, we don't have the running backs to be able to do it. We want to pass the football. Then okay, you can look at Odell. Sammy Watkins has dealt with a little bit of an injury thing. Going over the statistics, I'm sorry, I'm looking at my phone for these. Normally I look at my computer, but my computer's being really slow today, so I don't even know if like they would load pages. But overall, there has been a drop off in stats since he left the Giants, but that makes sense. He was the guy in New York, and as a volume wide receiver that thrives on space, that's the other key thing. He thrives on space. He doesn't thrive on route running. He thrives on catching the ball in space and making terrific catches and after the catch play. Cleveland didn't utilize that. When they threw it to Odell, it was, it's an out route, catches the ball, either is running out of bounds or gets tackled immediately. How the Giants ran it was, get Odell the ball in space and he could take it up the field and he can make some big plays. Heck, he did it against the Baltimore Ravens. Had like a 75, 80-yard touchdown against the Ravens on a slant route because they got the ball to him in space. That's what he's great at. Yeah, now he's famous for the one-handed catches. He's famous for the crazy plays that he's made. But like his specialty is catching the ball in space and turning on the jets and turning on the moves after the catch. Like that's what he's really good at. And do you guys think that the Ravens could give him that? The Ravens wide receivers, they don't catch the ball with a ton of space. However, they do a lot of times try and get their players the football in space. Devin Duvernay is a guy that the Ravens try and get the ball in space to him, and they do that through the jet sweeps. They do that through the reverses. The Ravens run a little bit of screens. Like they try and get the guys the ball early in certain situations. And that's something that Odell would be able to thrive in. But what I kind of want Odell to come to the Ravens, but at the same time, like I do have a lot of concerns just because one, the locker room issue, if he doesn't work out, like it could hurt the locker room. But at the same time, Ravens do have great locker room presence, great leadership in that locker room. But it's just one of those situations where I don't think he would be happy in Baltimore. And to me, with Odell, you got to keep him happy. I think that he would be much happier in a team that will be able to get him the football more because the Ravens just have a lot of guys. They got Hollywood, they got Mark Andrews, Sammy Watkins has been pretty good with Lamar, and Bateman obviously is coming through and he's looked pretty solid. He's gotten 6 targets in both of the games that he's had with the Ravens. So while I really like Odell as a player, I'm a big fan of Odell Beckham Jr. If he was on the Ravens, I think he would make the team better. However, I just don't know if it's really worth it for the Ravens to go after him. I just think that like saving that money in case of another injury or if another player ends up getting cut or something like that, at maybe a more needed position, the Ravens should go after that. But now finally into the will the Ravens sign him segment. I really don't think so. The Ravens have had the opportunity to try and go after guys like Odell Beckham Jr. And typically they haven't done it. Now Antonio Brown, I think, is a much more extreme case of like locker room drama. But Le'Veon Bell is a guy that you can look at like, hey, like, no, they got him. But the issue with Le'Veon Bell is like, he was like, oh yeah, you'll be thrown into a committee backfield. Odell will come in and want to be wide receiver one, and he will firmly believe that he is wide receiver one. He would not be wide receiver one on this Ravens team. He would probably be wide receiver two, but he would be pass catcher number 3 on the roster. And that just, I think the Ravens recognize that that is not something that they would be able to deal with. They don't like when players get mad and throw fits. Look at, like, there's some really good football players that have come to the Ravens and it just hasn't worked out. Guys like Earl Thomas. I think Earl Thomas is the best example I can give. Like, causes a little bit of drama. Yeah, he's a good football player. He can still do some work, but didn't really fit in the Ravens culture. And I don't think Odell fits in that Ravens culture. Even though I'm a huge Odell fan, I am rooting for the best for him. I think that Green Bay is probably the place that I want to see him in. But I don't know. I just don't think the Ravens will do it, which is unfortunate. I love watching Odell play. I love watching Marlon clamp up Odell. But overall, let me know what you guys think about Odell. Can the Ravens sign him? Should they sign him? And will they sign him? I don't think they will. I think they can. I'm iffy on if they should. Thank you, everybody, for watching. Subscribe for daily Ravens content. And I will see all of you